Hey, what's up? How's everyone doing? Good to see you today. God bless you. Coming to you live from sunny San Jose, California. Sitting outside, enjoying this nice weather on today. Hope that God is blessing you, having you a good day. Shout out to Southwest #1 Sunday School Department. God bless you. Miss you. Know that I love you. Shout out to Elder Mark King, Sunday School Superintendent for Southwest 1st Jurisdiction Sunday School Department. And shout out to Missionary Lisa Harris, Field Representative for Southwest 1st Sunday School Department. God bless you. You all know that I love Sunday school, and early this week we started with this week's lesson and the lesson aim. And the lesson for this week is an unfaithful bride. And we started a lesson aim, and I decided to break the lesson name up because there is so much in the lesson name. There are basically 3 parts to the lesson name. And on earlier this week, we talked about the first part, which says where you would learn how God commanded Hosea to love Gomer, to marry Gomer as a model for his love for Israel despite their unfaithfulness. And as we spoke on earlier this week, we talked about how Gomer was a woman of whoredoms. When you look at the memory verse, which is coming from the second verse of Hosea 1, it says, "The beginning of the word of the Lord by Hosea, and the Lord said to Hosea, Go take unto thee a wife of whoredoms and children of whoredoms, for the land have committed great whoredom, departing from the Lord." And as I stated on earlier this week, when you begin to study that and look into that, you'll find out that Gomer initially was not a woman of whoredom, but it was not until after she married Hosea and had children that she became a woman of whoredom. And being that she was a woman of whoredom basically meant that she was chasing after other men. She was chasing after other lovers. And God was using Hosea as an example of his love to the children of Israel and what he had to deal with, what he dealt with, and what he contended with the children of Israel, always chasing after other guys and chasing after other entities that they thought could bless them. I guess you would say either on the level of God or greater than God. They just became to the point where they just got to where they just wanted something, and they were seeking something besides what God could give them. And isn't that just like today, where people seek something other than God? Aren't you tired of hearing, I believe that there is a greater source. I believe that there is a higher power, but no one wants to acknowledge and recognize God as being the higher power. They always say that there is a higher power. What higher power is there? And why won't they give God the acknowledgement that he so desires or that he so deserves? But yet, God uses Hosea in a mighty way to be an example to the children of Israel as to what God had to contend with. But on today, I want to go to the second part of that lesson aim, which says, reflect on the meaning of marriage and unfaithfulness and God's desire for the restoration of broken relationships. There is something right there in that lesson aim, broken relationships. And then also the reflect on the meaning of marriage and unfaithfulness. A lot of people get married for the wrong reasons, all the wrong reasons. They get married because of outward beauty, and no doubt, I'm not going to refute that. You know, initially, for most people, it is the outward beauty that causes you to be attracted to someone, but then beauty fades. And the way that you look when you got married in the beginning is not going to be the way that you look come 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. You're going to change, and your facial features are going to change, and your beauty is going to change. And that woman that you may have married, my brother, that had that Coke bottle shape that was a brick house, in due time, that's going to change. And my sister, that man that you married that had that beautiful body, that Adonis body that you fell in love with, that six-pack and those pecs and those arms, that's going to fade. And What are you going to do when the beauty fades? What are you going to do when that beautiful body that you fell in love with fades? There has to be a respect for relationships. And then there also has to be an understanding of the meaning of marriage, and then what causes unfaithfulness. What causes a person to be unfaithful? Why are marriages breaking up? Why are 50% of marriages ended in divorce? It's because the people don't take it serious. They don't take the contract serious. They don't take the commitment seriously enough that they understand that when you get married, God said in Genesis that he called their name Adam. When he joined Adam and Eve together, he called them by one name. He said the twain shall become one flesh. So the two of them became one. And all too often when people get married, they don't blend and come together as one. They still come with the mindset that you get yours and I get mine. But there has to come a point in time where you understand that marriage means that you become one. You become one mind, one body, one flesh, one understanding, one mindset, one goal. It all becomes one. And the man is the head of the household, and he becomes the head of the woman, and he gives to the woman as God gives to him. And if he's the head of the house, then he is subject to God. And then it all falls into perfect order. But all too often, that doesn't happen. That's the reason why we have the problems that we have with marriages. But then I want to get to this part where it says, and God's desire for restoration of broken relationships. And that doesn't just apply to marriage, but that applies to all relationships. Your relationship with your brothers and your sisters, your relationship with your aunts and your uncles, your relationship with your mother and your father, all relationships. God desires that all broken relationships are mended. And when you look in Galatians and you look at the fruit of the Spirit, what you have to understand is the fruit of the Spirit gives you a perfect understanding of what a perfect relationship is all about. The first three parts of the fruit of the Spirit is what God gives to man. The second part of the fruit of the Spirit is what man gives to one another. And then the third part of the fruit of the Spirit comes from what man gives back to God. And when you look at it, it forms a perfect cross. It goes from the top to the bottom and then from side to side. Because the love that I have the fruit that I have to provide to a man is that's horizontal. That's from breast to breast. But what I have from God is from my heart to God. So that is what the perfect relationship is all about. And God's desire is that we mend broken relationships. That person that you haven't talked to because you had an ought against them, or you thought they may have had an ought against you. It just may be just a simple misunderstanding. Go get it together. Go fix it. Go bring it together. Go talk to that person who you haven't talked to in years because you all fell apart based off of a simple understanding. Listen, let me share this with you. I thank God I've been married now 22 years. And I remember within the first couple years of my marriage, my wife and I, just like all young couples, we would have our spats, we would have our arguments and our disagreements. And this one in particular, we were arguing and we were upset with one another. And I left the house and I went for a walk and was gone for quite a while. And when I returned back to the house, my dad was sitting in my living room. My wife had called my father. And when I walked in the house, I'm thinking, okay, my dad is here. She called my father. Certainly, this being my dad, he's going to take my side. No, my dad did not take my side. As a matter of fact, he didn't take my wife's side either because she was the one who called him. He didn't take her side either. But what my dad did set a precedent in our marriage that has lasted to this day. My dad said to us and asked us, what are you really arguing about? What are you really upset about? And we sat there and we thought about it for a minute. And then he said, what caused this argument? What caused this disagreement? And we can name everything but the initial thing that caused us to be in that situation, that caused us to argue and spat and disagree. We can name everything that I said in the midst of the argument. I can name everything she said in the midst of the argument, but the initial problem that caused it, we could not identify it. What am I saying? I'm saying to you the same thing my dad said to me. Sometimes communication lines break down and we don't even understand why we have a disagreement and our relationships are broken. It's time to communicate. Gomer even though she left and would have been the one to cause the relationship to break, Hosea never gave up on her. Hosea kept going and getting his wife and bringing her back. He continued to love her even through the things that she was putting him through. Even though it may have been embarrassing, it may have been hurtful, it may have been something that he really despised that she was doing. Even through all that, he yet loved her and still brought her back and kept the relationship going. Why are we not doing the same thing? And look how God does us. Even though we neglect him, we turn our back on him, we forget about him, we won't pray, we won't worship him, we won't give him honor, we won't give him the due, we won't magnify him. And even though we do all the things that we want to do, and we do not give God the reverence he deserves, he still loves us, and he still tries to make sure that we understand that the relationship has not ended. We just need to come back to him. I want you to understand that on today. Take that with you, and then take this Sunday school lesson to heart. Make it personal. Look at your relationships. If you're married, look at your marriage. And see, are you Hosea or if you're Gomer? And if you fall into either one of those categories, what did Hosea do to make sure that the relationship stayed perfect? And what did Gomer do to cause the relationship to have turmoil? And then see what you can do not to be Gomer, and see what you can be to be more like Hosea. God bless you, love you, and I hope God blesses you continuously.